You may remember a year ago that my guest on the show was John Bradford. You shared with us then your book, An Abundant Life, but in a sense, circumstances were coming to a head very much. And if I dare say this, I remember that it was very traumatic because you wondered whether you should even go ahead with the interview in your mind, really, didn't you?
When I came that day, yeah, Keith, almost a year ago, Tim was very sick. And yeah, I was reluctant to leave him, even for 24 hours. And as I came to the studio, my wife and I were on the phone, and Judy has always been helpful and, as a politician's wife, always supportive, and was reluctant to tell me how unwell he was that particular day. So it was hard, but yeah, I appreciated the thoughtful words we exchanged, and your caring for us as a family subsequently appreciated very much as well.
Well, I'm pleased that that's what we want to do. Tell us a little bit about how that chapter of your life played itself out, if I might say that. You know, what happened and how, in fact, you've moved from there.
It's a very big question, Keith, isn't it? Well, a lot of water's flowed under the bridge. It's almost 12 months now since Tim passed away. When I was here with you last time, he only had 3 weeks to live. Of course, we didn't know that, although we expected that his death was imminent, and he knew that. But moving through that experience with him, not only during his illness was his faith restored, but I strongly believe that Judy and my faith was strengthened, and the faith of our 2 daughters and subsequent families and friends was also strengthened. So it was a great learning experience, and Tim faced his almost certain death, as he knew, very courageously, and he knew he was going to heaven.
Listen, sometimes I say to people, tell us some of the unhelpful things people say, because they do. They say some dreadfully. But what were some of the positive things through that experience that were helpful to you?
Well, people have been very thoughtful and helpful. Our friends rallied around us. Tim's friends rallied around us. Even as recently as a couple of weeks ago, Tim's best friend got married, and the wedding was a great occasion because we were there with Tim and with all of Tim's friends. And Tim got as much mention in the wedding as the bride and the bridegroom, and there was even a toast to Tim in his absence there. So you know, our friends have been fantastic, and people, I think, find it difficult to know sometimes what to say. I guess we always wonder quite what to say to people when they've experienced a tragedy.
This is a brief, but it's a very deep question, I know. Did you ever question your faith through that journey?
My faith ultimately has been strengthened, but there have been plenty of times when I have to say that I've really asked God in the strongest terms I could, why?
Yes.
I mean, we all do that. We question why something has happened, and to lose a son at the age of 31 with so much to live for. A young, fit man, surfer, that was his passion, as it was in his mind, was a severe test for us.
And it feels out of the order of how it should be.
Absolutely does. I mean, children are not meant to die before their parents, although I think it's apparently it's happening increasingly for various reasons.
Look, you use the title of Still Making Waves for this new book. I mean, that's obviously a surfer writing a book like that, isn't it?
It is, but I'm still making some political waves as well, but not as many as I used to.
Yes.
I need to say, yeah, it's a bit of a play on words. I think the publisher came up with, and I thought it was quite clever. But it is a book about surfing. It's a book about my surfing life as a young man growing up in Sydney, surfing on the northern beaches and living on the northern beaches, and subsequently travelling up and down.
These are the best beaches, aren't they, here in Sydney?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of. I'm a Gold Coaster now, Keith. I have to say, probably we've got some great beaches on the Gold Coast as well. But the book also reflects on a lot of the things Tim and I did together. We did as a family. I mean, as you alluded to, our YWAM experience, and we travelled the world as a family for 5 years. And a lot of that, to wherever we went, Tim and I found waves. I mean, we just did. That's what we found, waves all over the place. Yeah.
And would you say that your faith, your perspective on God has changed through this experience?
I think I can only say that it's strengthened ultimately. I mean, we've had to fall back on our faith because there's been some grief is terribly debilitating, as many of your people watching this program will have experienced it. And I meet people every day who are grieving over the loss of a loved one. It's very difficult to come to grips with. And Judy and I still cry most days. I mean, we're still very fresh in our minds, of course. We're coming up to the 12-month anniversary of Tim's death. We just just had his birthday a month or two back, and we put flowers on the beach where we'd scattered his ashes. And so there were lots of moments like that where the grief comes back very strongly.
John, I want you to stay with us till the end of the show and perhaps have a word again with you at that point. But thank you for having the integrity and the willingness to share from your heart, not a story that's easy stuff, not a story that's saying, don't worry, it'll all be right, mate, you know. She'll be right has been very fearful for many people. But you've shared from the heart, and I do want to appreciate that. Somebody listening to this conversation that we've had together and some of the words that I've been sharing will want to try to understand what it is to lose a son or daughter and can't find answers to that, struggling to deal with loss. What would you say to somebody who's in the first throes of that kind of experience?
Well, I think what you have shared with us, Keith, were words you could have said directly to me, because our experience has been that as we weep and still do weep, that Jesus is weeping with us, and we trust him. It's been hard. Many people prayed for Tim's healing. We could not have prayed more fervently than people did around the world, thousands. And we don't know why Tim wasn't healed. And even after he'd passed away, some of our more charismatically inclined friends wanted him to be raised from the dead. They were in the hospital room with us, but I had to tell them, look, he's not coming back. So we've learned to hold on to our faith as strongly as we can.
And I hope this doesn't sound cheap. He's in a better place now.
Yes, and we're constantly assured of that, Keith. You know, whenever I question it, I was just with people yesterday who assured me, and I know that the truth is that Tim's gone to heaven now. We you know, however you see paradise or heaven as a place of no suffering, it's a place of perfection.
Yes,
and we're greatly comforted to know that not only is Tim there, but that one day we'll be there too.
John, that's an enormous testimony to share out of your own experience. And I do want to thank you for being willing to share that story, and for you, your wife and your daughters. We pray that God will continue to uphold you and strengthen you. And if you want to get hold of his book, it's also a good read too. And if you're not a surfer, well, you can pretend you are by reading that book and his story.